Welcome back to the Gracefully Wild Soul podcast. This week, we're going to talk about energy, a little energy 101 and a little bit of energetic hygiene and kind of the subcategories that go into that. It's so important for us as humans to connect with energy, understand it, and have energetic hygiene. So I wanted to have this conversation with you and just share my thoughts and my practices. So let's jump right in. Welcome to the Gracefully Wild Soul podcast. I'm Kirsten, a mother and soul guide, and this is a space where your soul is witnessed and the frequency of your heart is felt. Together, we will have intimate conversations about the essence of life, the beauty of your soul's path, and our evolution as women and as mothers. Through channeled words, lived experiences, and the wisdom of nature's rhythms, the soul, and the sacred feminine, this is where the gracefully wild woman begins to rise. All right, let's start with a little 101 or some foundational pieces when it comes to energy. What is energy? Well, everything is energy. That is, in fact, a quote from Albert Einstein, and it really couldn't be said any better. It truly is that simple, and yet it is that complex. Everything that we see, everything that we touch, everything that we feel, everything that we hear, taste, experience, I could go on and on. It's all energy. You are energy. I am energy. The chair you're sitting on is energy. The ocean is energy. My voice is energy. It is everything. This planet, the Milky Way, the universe that we live in, it just is everything. And this has been I think, a universal belief for thousands of years. And it might have been said differently. It might have looked differently. It might have been described differently when we look at different cultures, when we look at different religions, when we look at different countries, when we look at different, centuries or decades, or whether it's the scientists versus the spiritual woo-woo, whatever, whoever, whenever it was. This is the universal truth that I think we have all finally come to accept in some form or fashion. Everything is energy. Everyone is energy. And so, how do we work with that? How do we understand that? How do we, I don't know, grasp the concept around energy? Well, I think that that's a really important reflection point because you are going to have your own unique practices. You're going to have your own unique lens of experiencing or seeing things. But I do think that there are some basics that we should all work with, that we should all connect with. And I think the first that I want to address is really that energy is transferable. And again, this is something that is proved, scientifically. This is part of quantum physics. It is scientifically based, but also if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, you know this to be true as well. Like you don't need the paper or the data. Energy is transferable. And that means that we can pick up on energies from our space. We can pick up energies from other people, from words, from books, from experiences, from places, whatever it is. Energy is transferable. And this is one of the basic foundations in quantum physics is that energy is not created nor destroyed. And so we come back to that transferable. It can be transmuted. It can be alchemized. It can be moved. It can be, grown. It can be channeled in a particular way, but it's not destroyed. So how do we receive it and how do we give it? This is the basics of living as a human, as an energetic being out in the world. And so I want us to understand that and accept that as like a basic, baseline that energy is transferable. You can share it and you can pick it up. And so when we distill energy down even more, we can see that even just in this conversation, I've shared that energy comes from or it's gathered, from places out in the world, but from other people as well, right? And so it means that we hold our own kind of personal energy, like energy in our personhood. But then there's also this energy that's living out in the world that we are picking up from other humans, but also from our environments, from, the earth itself, from rooms, from fabrics, from colors. They all have an energetic blueprint. So there is this like personal energy. And then there's like this collective energy. And this collective energy is accumulating all of the personal energy. And again, there is this transference that's happening between the personal and the collective and the personal. So it's just fluid. Energy is fluid. And I'm saying fluid thinking of water, but obviously there's so many different ways that energy is transferred. It's not just like through water. It's not something that we can see all the time. We can feel it sometimes. We can see it in certain ways, like in expressions and certain things. But it is just a very movable, it is very fluid, and it is everywhere. So I want to kind of just talk about some of the, words, either the buzzwords or the terms that you might have heard of when it comes to speaking about energy. And again, this is just a reminder that in my personal opinion, and obviously anyone is entitled to have their own, these are universal concepts that are just simply described and channeled and even just visualized slightly different. But again, at the baseline, everything is energy. You have personal energy and there's collective energy. So some of the buzzwords that maybe you've heard of when we are speaking about energy and kind of the concepts around it, the first might be chakras, right? These wheels of energy that live inside of us. Maybe you heard it in a yoga class. Maybe you've heard somebody else talk about it on a podcast or a Substack, whatever it is. But these wheels of energy that live inside of us. And in fact, those wheels of energy, those chakras exist for our planet. They exist for animals. They exist, out in different places. They're not just for humans. It's everywhere. So again, there's that personal and that collective lens that we're looking at here. And so another concept or another buzzword that maybe you've heard when we're speaking about energy are meridian lines. Maybe you've had acupuncture or acupressure, but meridians is a term that is used in traditional Chinese medicine. And these are the channels that live inside of the physical body that carry the chi, the life force energy that we have. And so maybe you've heard of, your meridian lines somewhere down the line. So that might be another term that you have heard of when we're speaking about energy and energetics. Two other, ways that you might have heard energy spoken about are through the nadis. Again, this could have been in a yoga class where you are, moving your energy, your kundalini energy through the nadis, and there's a feminine and there's a masculine. And so that might be another term that you have heard when we're speaking to like these energy centers or channels or lines when we're looking at our physical body. Something else that you might have heard is your aura. Like, oh my God, like she has such a great aura. Or, like her aura is so pink. I mean, it's funny. My youngest actually has told me I have like a color, and she doesn't know the term necessarily aura. Like that's not something that was part of her vocabulary, but she could just see the color that I was emanating. And so your aura is also part of your energetic body. So that also carries like your energy, like your personal energy. And again, auras exist out there for, non-humans. All energetic beings have like an aura. It might not have a color, but it has like that, I don't know, just that energetic field that is vibrating around it, right? Okay, so that brings me to my next one. This is maybe a little bit more generic and is certainly used across the board. And that is just the term energetic body, right? We have a physical body, like a body that we can see and touch and identify with. But we also have an energetic body, like our energy lives in another layer to us. We also have an emotional body and a spiritual body, but that's for another conversation. So the energetic body is another way that we might refer to energy for a person or another energetic being. And another, kind of yogic word that's all rooted in Hinduism is the koshas. So again, that like layer that you have off of your physical body. So these are just some of the terms that maybe you've heard when we're referring to kind of your overall energetic body, what comes off of the personhood, but that also can exist for any energetic being. It just might look, feel, or be described differently. So, because we have like these, energy channels or energy centers, and we are all made up of energy and it's transferable, that means that we can pick up on energy, we can share energy, and energy can get stuck. And so that just means that energetic hygiene is actually a super important conversation. And it really doesn't matter if you're the super sensitive soul or you're the, super logical person in your family. You are all affected by the energy that you carry, that you're surrounded by, and that you are exposed to. And so, energetic hygiene is just another way to care for yourself and ultimately the world. You take care of your physical body, right? Like maybe you exercise or you clean your face or you take showers, baths, whatever it is. Like you have hygiene in different ways and you care for yourself in different ways in the physical world. Well, your energetic self, your energetic body needs the same TLC, friend. It needs all of it. So that's why we're having this conversation today, because I just think it's really important. The more that we are attuned with our personal energy, the more attuned we can be with other people's. And that just means that we have a better symbiotic, reciprocal relationship in our personal lives and out in the world. So let's talk about the three categories that are important for energetic hygiene. And I'm going to try not to go too deep into each one because honestly, I could go on and on with different practices and et cetera. I just want to go over each of them and talk about some important points, and we'll just have to flesh out the rest at a different time. So the first being energetic boundaries. Whew. I am a recovering people pleaser, which means energetic boundaries or just boundaries in general were something that I had to learn. And I actually had no idea for so long that I was a people pleaser. I was in some talk therapy for a couple years, and the therapist was like, "Oh, yeah, you did X, Y, and Z because of that people pleasing tendency." And I was like, "Rrr?" I was like, "What?" And I like sat there and I like thought about it. I was like, "Oh my God, I never labeled myself as a people pleaser. I never really thought that I was a people pleaser. I actually thought I had pretty good boundaries." I was like, "But hot damn." I was like, "I'm a people pleaser." And so one of the things that I learned very quickly or I noticed about my life was my people pleasing tendencies came out in the way where I was always saying yes. I was always saying yes to invitations, to circumstances, to the next thing, whatever it was. It was like an automatic rubber stamp yes. I never even thought, I didn't pause. I didn't think. I didn't process. I didn't understand whether that was something that would fill my cup and have some sort of reciprocal relationship for me. I just was like, yeah, I mean, I don't want to disappoint a person, right? Heck yeah, I'm there. So I realized that that's what I was doing. And so when I came to understand that, these are the three things that I kind of distilled energetic boundaries down for myself as being. The first being self respect, the second being self care, and the third being self love. These three can obviously, have similarities and crossovers, but self respect, self care, and self love can look different for every single person. So, self respect is essentially not trying to meet someone else's expectation just to meet their expectation. Like, I should respect myself more. Like, I'm not gonna fawn over. I can't just fawn over and do everything that this person says I should do because it meets their expectations or their desires. Like, that's disrespectful to myself. It's not on them, it's not on that person, it's on me. Like, I need to have a boundary for myself. Self-care, over giving, over delivering, right? Like, are you that person in the office that's constantly over delivering and be like, hey, where's my credit? Why isn't everybody, excited that I just over delivered? Well, there are certain situations where if you're like constantly doing that, you're constantly over delivering, you're not having a good energetic boundary for yourself. Like, that's not self care. There needs to be reciprocity. There needs to be an exchange. There needs to be communication, partnership in everything that we do. And self care is really important in that element where it's like, if you're just caring about other people and their expectations, you're actually not showing yourself any sort of self care. Not only that, if you're just like running yourself down physically, emotionally, spiritually, like if you have no spiritual practice, if you have no physical activity, if you have no moments of self care where you're, taking care of yourself, whatever that might be, a walk, a gym session, a yoga session, a facial, whatever it is, then that self-care element is missing severely. Like, you need to find your thing and you need to have it. That is an energetic boundary. Fill your cup, take care of yourself. You cannot give to other people what you do not have, what is not available to you. And self-love, okay? Compassion and self-love. This is like forgiveness, right? So if you made a mistake and you did something, were you like the harshest person on yourself in your life? That was me. I literally was my worst critic. I honestly would just destroy myself internally for mistakes or, frankly, not meeting someone's expectation, right? Like, the people pleaser was my downfall. Self love is an energetic boundary and it is so, so important. You got to forgive yourself. You have to love yourself for whoever you are, your wholeness, everything that you have. It is so crucial. Self love, compassion, forgiveness. So, these are kind of what falls under energetic boundaries for me. But again, what you do, the practice of setting the energetic boundary can look very different for each person. It can mean saying, no, I'm going to stay home. It can mean, I'm sorry, but this friendship is not working out anymore. It can mean, I need to go on a walk instead of spend another hour on my phone. It literally can look like so many different things and it can change moment to moment. You have to decide what the energetic boundary is for you. But the first step is taking ownership that you haven't set a boundary for your personal self, for you. So set that boundary. Do what you need to do. Okay, number 2. Energetic protection. So energy protections. So again, this is a separate category in my mind of energetic hygiene. But yes, there is some crossover and there are things that kind of go hand in hand with the two. So I do energetic protections in a variety of ways. So the first is having an energetic boundary. That is a form of protection. Okay, so we already talked about that, but that's number 1. Other energy protection mechanisms that I use, I can use them in my daily life all the way up to when I am working with a client or I'm holding space for other people. They're all super important. And in fact, I will layer. That is my number 1 advice when it comes to energetic protections is layer, layer, layer. One might not be sufficient. It just might not be. It could be a day where it's totally fine. Like you're just hanging out in your house. You're not leaving. Your space is all cleared and protected and it's clean energetically and you don't need that extra protection. Or maybe you're traveling across the world and you're going to be going through LaGuardia Airport and, Charles de Gaulle and, or, whatever it is. And you're going to come across thousands of people and you need those layers of protection. So you get to be the judge. But the first practice that I usually start my morning with, and I will try to end my day with also, which is protection and a clearing. So I'll kind of go into that later. But I start by bubbling myself up. You've probably heard other people say that. I think it's actually one of the easiest and the most important practices that you can have for energetic protection. And anybody can do this, okay? I am a Reiki master. I work with energy. I do energy healing. I do energy clearing. But let me tell you, none of that is required. It's just not. It's, an amazing thing and I love it. And I can add other layers using those techniques and that framework. But anybody can connect with energy and create that protective bubble around themselves. So I do this by using a visualization technique. And visualization is, again, super powerful and it can be used in 1,000,000,000, billion different ways. Whatever you can visualize, you can make happen because it's all energy. Just because you cannot see it with your physical eyes doesn't mean it's not happening, doesn't mean it's not there, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. That's why visualization is so powerful because you are connecting with the energy, the unseen energy, and you're working with it. Like that's what's happening. So I will visualize a bubble, like a golden light bubble, almost like that iridescent, like, actual bubble, like if you're blowing a bubble as a kid, creating that bubble around your body, like around my physical self. And it's above my upper chakras. And so I will just pull down that golden light all the way around. And I'll say a little prayer as I'm doing it. I'll call and ask for protection and guidance around my day and ask that my energy remains protected and sealed in my energy bubble and that anybody else's energy stays with them and it does not come into my energetic field. So I'll just say that silently. And in fact, I encourage my girls to do that. I will do it for them. I will do it for my family whenever we're, facing that extra situation. So that energetic bubble is a really powerful tool. So you're using that visualization technique to create a bubble. Now, again, I spoke about layers. So I will layer in different things. So in addition to doing that bubble, I will usually use some sort of spray. So I have like these body sprays or these body mists, and, they're all made in sacred ritual and they're connected to different elements and different energy, but I will spray that and create like an actual physical bubble with that spray. So that is coming and misting over my body as I'm visualizing that golden light coming over me. So I'm layering in the protections. And again, I'll ask for guidance and protection from my spirit guides. So another layer where it's like, yes, I'm here. I'm an energetic being. I am creating an energetic bubble. I am then using a physical element to seal in that energetic bubble. But I'm also going to ask for guidance from all of my support team. So again, layer, layer, layer. So using kind of this same concept, this energy bubble that I'm speaking about really has been about your physical body, but you can use that same bubble for spaces and places. So homes, rooms, if you're going to a restaurant or you're going to the beach or you're holding space for someone else, you can do the same practice in a bigger format. So I will do that for my family when we're traveling or when we're doing something where there could be a lot of interference or a lot of negative energy or things that can get stuck. So one example that I'm going to use is we were just on our summer vacation and we were at a family home where there is a known spirit that is staying in limbo. It is living in the house. So this ghost, this spirit has been hanging around. And obviously, as a highly sensitive lady and my kids being highly sensitive, I was like, yeah, no, we need to have our extra protections. We need to not only personally bubble up, but we need to like create some protections in our space, in our rooms, because when we're sleeping, we're more vulnerable. Things can happen in the unconscious when we're sleeping. And so it's important that when you're sleeping that you're also, having these protections. So I actually bubbled up the room that my kids were sleeping in. I bubbled up the room that my husband and I and the dog were sleeping in. And so I did my big bubble visualization. The next thing that I did, which again, you can do this in other physical spaces, just your home, like your day-to-day home, is I also added in a visualization of a salt line. I created a salt line around the rooms. So our room and their room. And I was very specific and very clear that these lines also had to be created around the thresholds in the room. Thresholds are really important for energetic protection. Your house is full of thresholds, full of portals, doors, windows, and fireplaces. And then obviously there's some vents and other things, but those are the three primary, right? Windows, fireplaces, and doors. So I made sure to have that salt line visualization with added protection for those thresholds, because thresholds is where energy likes to live, especially if it's a spirit that is quite literally living in the liminal, living in the in between. These are the places they like to be. These are the nooks and crannies. So I was just very clear with my visualization. And you can do the same thing no matter where you are or what you're doing. If this is just your home and you want to have your kind of standard regular practice for your energetic protections, you can do that for your front door. Because remember, when you walk in the front door, you're crossing the threshold of your house. That is a sacred space. And you bring that stuff in with you. You're bringing it into your home, and obviously you can take it out as well. So making sure that you're protecting those threshold points and doing your visualization with a salt line or with a bubble in the area helps add that extra protection. So I already mentioned kind of using something physical like an aura spray or some sort of spray to help kind of bubble my energy. Well, you can do the same thing for your home, right? Or another space that you're using. So you can actually use real salt. You can use cinnamon as a protection. Rosemary is a beautiful protector. So you can add in these physical elements or like crystals for your protection for your physical spaces in the same way that you can use like kind of a body spray to protect your human self, your personhood. Okay, last one. I love gridding, and I use that really loosely because this can be used in so many different ways. So gridding can be used through visualization. So you can create a grid of your space and or your body using visualization. And so that grid can quite literally look like, I would say, basic shapes, like just geometry, or you can use sacred geometry, or you can use specific symbols that you connect with. For me, it would be Reiki symbols, or you can use colors. So again, gridding is a way to create an anchor, like a protective anchor around you or around a space. And you're using different elements to do that. And of course, once again, you can use a physical element. You can use crystals to grid and create a sacred shape in order to protect a space. And for you, if it's on your personhood, maybe that's a piece of jewelry or an amulet or something along those lines. So a variety of ways to do that. But protections are important and different than boundaries because we want to, yes, set a boundary and be like, yes, this is my line. But at the same time, we want to protect our personal energy. We want to keep it to ourselves. We don't want to be leaking out energy. When we have energy leaks, that's when we're tired. That's when we're drained. That's when we're unable to feel the passion of life and have that creative fire. And we're just, moving from the next thing to the next thing. So making sure that you also have energetic protections is what's going to help just keep your energetic hygiene in its best state. Okay, last kind of, big category when we're talking about energetic hygiene, and that's energy clearing. Okay. So no matter what, let's just say you have great boundaries. Let's just say you have great protections. At the end of the day, there's still going to have to be some cleansing and clearing that's going to happen. Doesn't matter if you're like the best of the best or, you're just getting into this practice. Everybody needs energy clearing. Energy gets stuck. It just happens. There's just no, perfect way around it unless you're literally spending every second of every day clearing and setting boundaries and protecting. Like it's just going to happen. Like chakras are going to carry some more energy. Emotions are going to get stuck. The air is going to feel stagnant in your house at some point. We have changing of seasons. We have things that are going on in our lives. And so just cleansing out that season and opening space for the next is part of the process that we're constantly in. The new moon, full moons. Again, all of these cyclical pieces that are happening in our lives. So energy clearing can take place in so many different ways. I think the best way for me to describe how to do energy clearing is actually to use like the five elements. And so the elements of fire, water, earth, air, and ether or spirit. And so really using those elements as a way to clear energy. And so that can look so different for every single person. So one very common practice that people use is smudging, right? So this, brings in the element of air, it brings in the element of fire, and it brings in the element of earth, really, because whatever product you're using, you're most likely using something that comes from the earth. So you're using these elements to help clear out anything that doesn't belong to you, any negative or stagnant energy that's just hanging around. So, smudging is a beautiful practice and it's been around for thousands of years. There are so many different things to use to smudge. Obviously, we want to be thoughtful and respectful of, what we're using when we're smudging and that it's being sourced ethically and it's not being over harvested. There's a lot of over harvested sage and even Palo Santo. Those are the two common things that are used. So if you have an opportunity to use something different that's more plentiful, please do that. It's important that we remember that over harvesting or overusing one thing is not the way that nature is set up. We need to, spread, kind of how we connect with earth and how we're using the elements. So finding something different to smudge with is accessible to everyone. So another way that you can help, kind of clear the energy is using water. So again, this can look like so many different things. You can use those kind of like room sprays, like again, things like auric sprays, obviously source them from someone that creates them in ritual and in practice, and takes great care to create them because you're putting this energy into your space. But another way to use water to kind of cleanse and clear a physical space is honestly putting out bowls of salt water or water with like some sort of citrus or some scent that you love. Like that helps just clean and cleanse out the air, clears out the space. If you're using water for your physical self, I love a good hot salt bath, right? So you're adding in salt, again, salt's a protector and a clearing and cleansing agent. And so, a solid hot salt bath with that Epsom salt is a really great way to like clear your personal energy. When you're taking a shower and you're using water, visualize the water clearing and cleansing your day away, whatever doesn't belong to you. These are easy, easy, easy things to do. Let's see. Let's talk about, just like earth. Again, you can make like a simmer pot. This is another way to connect with a variety of elements, but obviously earth, water, and even air are in there. So making a simmer pot and, just adding different herbs that have energetic properties to help cleanse and clear space. If you are using it for your personhood, I love teas to help cleanse and clear out our bodies, right? Like if we connect with certain plants, certain fruits and vegetables, they help clean and clear out our physical body. Yeah. And speaking of just like kind of earth and bodies, like our physical self, think of our physical body as a microcosm of Mother Earth, right? This is the physical being that we have, and we should care for it. So, implementing those kind of somatic practices to help clear and cleanse out energy, like shaking your body, brushing off energy, just jumping up and down, running, walking, like these are all ways to cleanse and clear and have that kind of somatic movement in your body to cleanse and clear your energy. What else? Okay, so we talked about a little bit of air, we talked about some fire, we talked about earth. Let's talk about spirit and ether. I am a Reiki practitioner, so I use the power of Reiki to clear and cleanse out my physical body and or a space. But you can also just use visualization. So if you are not a Reiki practitioner, you're not attuned to Reiki, a visualization practice is really powerful still, no matter what. Anybody can do this. So like opening the windows, again, the thresholds, friends. Opening the windows, opening the doors, and just visualize pushing any negative energy out of your home, out of the physical space. And you can, again, do the same thing for your human self, like your personhood. Visualize, all of that energy melting away, pushing it back to whoever it belongs to, calling your personal power and your energy back to yourself is, again, a really powerful way to cleanse and clear energy. Yeah, like when my girls come home from school, I have them like rub their hands together and like create that heat. And then they bring their left hand close to their heart, holding their own personal energy in a sacred space. And they use their right hand to push away energy that doesn't belong to them, that maybe they collected over the day. And you can do the same practice. It's simple, but very, very powerful. Let's just briefly kind of talk about cord cutting, being release, and chakras when we're talking about energy clearing. So, as an energy practitioner and someone that works on clearing out energy, I use Reiki, but I also use multiple practices in order to help clear out energy because it comes from different angles and different ways. So, energetic cords, I actually find that this conversation doesn't happen a lot. There can be what quite literally looks like a rope that is tied around your energetic self. And that rope can then be attached to another person, to a place. I'm going to tell you a quick story about that. And if you have that energetic cord that's wrapped around your energetic body and it's attached, you are constantly in connection with that energy, whatever it might be, good or bad, friends, no matter how old it is. And so we have to break attachments. We have to break energetic cords. And when I say break, I don't actually break them, I remove them. And that's super important is that we remove them. Like we take a thread and we unthread the needle. We're not cutting it. People talk about cord cutting, and I will use that term, but I'm not actually cutting it because that means that the energy would still be hanging on to you. We want to remove it. We want to completely unthread the needle. So let's talk about a quick story about that. So my husband and I owned a home in Washington State for many, many years. It was something that he actually owned before we met. We've been together for 20 years, so we ended up owning it for a very long time together, but he bought it before we were together. And ultimately, it became part of our relationship. And so our money and our resources and our time would go to this house because it was a rental. And so there was all the things that come with rentals, right? And so there came to be a time where it was like, okay, are we going to further invest in this property or are we going to sell it? And we're at this like I don't know, like this threshold, like this, the fork in the road. And I was decided, but he was not, because he had an emotional and an energetic attachment to this property for personal reasons. And so when I actually went in and I visualized the house, I was like reading the energy of the house. I could see that there was an energetic cord attached between the house and him. And I had to do a clearing, I had to do a removal. And as soon as I did that, he was ready. He was like, yes, let's sell the house. But before, he was like teetering. He was like, I don't know. I don't know if I've had this plan. I really want to do this. I think we should commit and just go, like double down on it. And I'm like, this is the money pit. No, if you've ever seen that movie, that's what I'm referring to. But I was like, no, there's something happening here. And so I tapped into the energy and I could see that there was this energetic cord. And I had to clear it. I had to remove it. And that was super important because there was just a huge long thread that kept him hanging on to this energetic, existence that he had outgrown, that he was ready to move on. And that's an important thing, is that there's compassion in this process when we are clearing energy. It's important that we have compassion when we're clearing out what's been hanging around, and we're maybe making space for the new. There is some sort of gratitude in whatever service the energy has served at some point, but that you are ready to release it and it's time to let go. And so that was a practice that was really powerful. And I use it often with clients when I work in the Akashic Records. I will do any sort of clearing of, energetic ties or energetic cords, because that's what holds us back. It keeps us in these old storylines. And frankly, they can go back to past lives. It's not just like a simple, hey, this is what was happening in my childhood. This cord can go back lifetimes. So energetic clearing is really important. And so what you can do is that if you notice like a heaviness in your body somewhere and it just will not go away, like it just won't go away, I want you to just close your eyes and really visualize and focus on what's happening in that part of your body. Is there something that's sticking there, something that feels heavy and dense? Well, I want you to then visualize clearing and cleansing it and releasing it, having gratitude and compassion and then sending it away. So that's an easy way for you to kind of help clear, even if you're not, I don't know, if you can't get super specific with it. You can help yourself move away from it. You can help clear it from your energetic system. And so the same practice can be used for chakras, right? So again, if you're kind of connecting to your body and understanding that something feels heavy or stuck, you don't necessarily have to know all the details. I do think it's really important to go deeper and to truly heal and release something that maybe we've been holding on to for a long time or lifetimes. But a simple clearing and cleansing technique is accessible to everyone, and you can do it too. So using, kind of that visualization for your chakras or any heaviness in your body. So see if there's any kind of cords or anything that's attaching. And that's the same thing with like energetic beings, right? There could just be this like glob, like, the glob of energy that's just stuck and you need to like get rid of it. So same practice. I think that's what I got. Energetic hygiene. It's all the things of boundaries, protection, and clearing. And it's really important for us all to do it. And I hope that this episode helped you connect to different practices and understanding ways for you to connect with your own energetic hygiene. I also am available for Reiki sessions or energetic clearings. I will certainly link it in the show notes. So if that's something that you feel that you need in your life, feel free to check out all the details on it. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until next week. All right, bye. Thank you, love, for being here. May you walk forward guided by the wild wisdom of your soul and the truth of your heart. To find me beyond the podcast, you can join my newsletter at soulbabe.com, for continual updates on offerings and other teachings, or subscribe to the Gracefully Wild Soul Substack. Until next time.